My father forcefully put my gay brother to marry a girl of his choice, and then made his wife pregnant. Turned out the girl was also going to parties and orgies as well. Then my father tried to do the same with me, and then I did what I had to. Now he says I ruined the family. I, 22 male, live in a small South Asian country famous for a certain beverage. My family's name carries a lot of weight here. Old money, old reputation. My parents, both 49, were the only heirs to their respective family businesses. They were practically traded like assets themselves, married off right after finishing their A-levels because it made sense. They were 19, barely adults when they tied the knot. A year later, my brother Sean was born. Then came university, then the family business for my dad, while my mom slipped into the predictable rhythm of high society life. Galas, charity luncheons, high teas, and gossip. Somewhere along the way, I was born too. But honestly, it never felt like I had parents. Not in the real sense of the word. They were always around physically, but never present. I've long suspected, and now I know for certain, that they didn't really see us as people. To them, Sean and I were more like proof of status, future pawns to be married off, molded, displayed. Sean, though, he was everything they weren't. He became my real family before either of us even understood what that meant. He was only 6 years older than me, but he filled every role: brother, mother, father, best friend. One of my earliest memories is of being terribly sick when I was about 4. I still remember the fever dreams, the hospital lights, the smell of antiseptic. My parents never came once. Not a single visit. Our grandmother stopped by a few times, but it was Sean, just 10 years old, who stayed by my bed, made sure I took my medicine, who held my hand when I cried. That's when I think I started to see him as more than a brother. On my first day of school, I remember clutching his hand so tightly I almost cut off his circulation. All the other kids had their parents walking them to class. I had Sean. He knelt down, told me it was okay to be scared, and walked me to my classroom before running off to his own. Later, I found out he was punished for being late, but he never told me then. He just smiled when I asked how his day went. That's the kind of brother Sean was. We both went to one of the most prestigious schools in the country, the kind where legacy, reputation, and grades all seemed to matter more than kindness. Sean fit right in. He was the kind of son every parent here dreamed of having. Tall, effortlessly handsome, always calm and composed, with this easy smile that made people trust him instantly. He had that quiet confidence that drew people in. He didn't demand attention. It just followed him. He thought before he spoke, before he acted. Always the mediator when others fought. I'd only ever seen him lose his temper once, and that one time was enough to show me that behind all that calm, he had fire too. Sean was brilliant, not just in his studies, but in everything. He played sports like he was born for it, captained his school team, even made it into the under-19 national team before quitting to focus on his education. He was a natural leader, the kind people looked up to. He never smoked, never drank, which in our culture, where alcohol is still frowned upon and most drinkers are binge drinkers, made him all the more admirable. He just never saw the appeal of it, even after turning 18. He also had a soft spot for kids. Younger students would crowd around him like he was some kind of superhero. And honestly, to me, I was the opposite. The rebellious one. The disappointment in the family photo. When I hit my early teens, I started slipping. Bad habits, bad company, worse thoughts. I don't know what exactly I was looking for back then, but I think it was attention. Some kind of love that I thought I'd never get. I spiraled fast, and if Sean hadn't stepped in when he did, I don't think I'd be here telling this story. He pulled me out of that darkness without judgment, just quiet patience and relentless care. While he was popular, especially among girls, thanks to his looks and class, he always politely turned them down. I didn't understand why then. I just thought he was too focused on his goals. In our school system, everything revolved around 2 milestones: the ordinary levels and the advanced levels. You had to pass the first to move up, and the second determined your shot at university. Sean, of course, breezed through O-levels like it was nothing, as if success just naturally gravitated toward him. After our A-levels, things started to shift. My father wanted Sean to take the sensible route: business studies, management, accounting. The path that would lead him straight into the family empire. But Sean had always been drawn to something else entirely. He wanted to be a doctor. He wanted to help people, not sell things. That didn't sit well with my father. The day Sean told him, our house turned into a battlefield. Shouting echoed through the halls, my father's voice booming, my mother crying softly in the background, Sean standing his ground. I'd never seen him that defiant before. He refused to bend. In the end, he struck a deal. He'd study medicine, work for a few years, and then join the family business later. My father finally agreed, but with one condition. He wouldn't pay a cent for Sean's expenses. Luckily, higher education in our country is free, so Sean didn't need tuition money. But he still had to work part-time to cover his rent and daily needs. He was 18 then, determined and unshakable. After his exam results came, he rented a small apartment near his workplace and university. It wasn't fancy, but it was his space, his freedom. I'd visit often. His door was always open to me. Then one day, I went over unannounced. That wasn't unusual. I'd always just show up. I let myself in with the spare key he'd given me. But what I saw that day changed everything. Sean was on the couch with another man. They were both shirtless, kissing like they'd forgotten the world existed. For a moment, I froze. My brain refused to understand what I was seeing. The other guy, Milo, I knew him too, one of the school's most popular athletes. He played a different sport, one that everyone here worshipped. He'd been the captain of his team, even made it to the under-19 national level. Seeing him, of all people, there, with my brother, sent my world spinning. I was 14. I didn't understand what I was seeing, not really. All I knew was that it clashed violently with everything I'd ever been taught. In my country, homosexuality isn't just frowned upon, it's practically erased. We don't talk about it. It's taboo, something whispered about behind closed doors. Growing up, I'd heard the usual ignorant things, that it was wrong, unnatural. I'd never even questioned it. So in that moment, all I felt was shock, disgust, confusion, fear. I bolted out of the apartment, my heart pounding in my ears, and wandered aimlessly for hours. I didn't know where to go or what to think. I'd always seen Sean as this perfect figure, my protector, my role model, my anchor. And suddenly, I didn't know who he was anymore. Looking back now, I can admit it, I was a homophobe. Not out of hate, but out of ignorance. I didn't know any better. I'd never seen love that looked like that. Later that evening, Milo found me. I don't know how long he'd been searching, but he finally spotted me sitting on a bench near a small tea shop, still shaken. He didn't yell or get defensive. He just sat beside me quietly, then asked if I wanted to talk. I didn't say much, but he did. He told me he understood why I was upset, that it must have been confusing to see. But he also said in the calmest, most genuine tone, that what I saw wasn't something shameful. That he and Sean cared about each other deeply, and that love wasn't wrong just because people didn't understand it. At first, I didn't respond. I just stared ahead, too overwhelmed to think. But something in the way he spoke, the gentleness, the patience, made it hard to stay angry. Eventually, he convinced me to come back to the apartment. Sean was there, clearly anxious, pacing the floor. The moment I walked in, his face softened with relief. He didn't try to justify himself. He didn't scold me or make excuses. He just said, "I'm still your brother. That doesn't change." And that sentence, simple, raw, and full of love, hit me harder than anything else. We sat and talked for hours that night. They explained things I'd never understood, what it meant to love someone, to be different in a world that punishes difference, to live truthfully even when it's terrifying. By the time I left, my head was spinning, but not from disgust anymore. From realization. After that night years ago, everything changed between us, in a good way. I was confused at first, but I loved my brother too much to let that confusion turn into hate. Over time, I accepted him. Sean and Milo sat me down and explained everything, different sexualities, attraction, even safe sex practices. It was awkward as hell, and honestly, felt more like a medical lecture than a conversation. But I listened. Sean was a medical student back then, and Milo was studying engineering. They were patient with me, never condescending. Slowly, what once shocked me became normal. Fast forward 6 years. They both graduated with flying colors, Sean as a doctor, Milo as an engineer, and found good jobs. I was just waiting for my university term to begin, working at a small cafe Sean had founded while he was still studying. Things were finally peaceful. Then everything collapsed. Our parents found out about their relationship. I still don't know how they learned the truth. Maybe gossip, maybe someone from Sean's workplace talked, but the reaction was brutal. My father went ballistic. He threatened to disown Sean, cut him off financially, and even worse, he tried to send people after Milo's family to teach them a lesson. That was the kind of man he was, power-hungry, prideful, and obsessed with appearances. To protect Milo and his family, Sean helped him leave the country early. Milo went to Germany, saying he'd wait until things settled down. But instead of easing up, my father doubled down. He wanted to fix Sean's reputation. His brilliant idea? An arranged marriage. The girl was named Ava, one of his business colleagues' daughters, at least 10 years older than Sean. From the moment I met her, something felt off. She smiled too much, laughed at all of my father's jokes, and kept looking at Sean like he was some prize to be won. My brother refused the proposal outright. He told my father he wasn't interested, but saying no to my father never went well. Then came the night of the party. I wasn't there, I still hate myself for that. They'd realized by then that Sean never drank alcohol, so instead, someone spiked his food. When he woke up the next morning, Ava was in his bed. Both of them naked. The photos were already circulating among my father's circle before Sean even had time to process what had happened. The shame, the pressure, it was unbearable. Within a week, he was forced into marriage. He called Milo that night. I heard part of the conversation. His voice was broken, but steady. He told Milo that he couldn't keep him waiting, that he wouldn't drag him into the mess his life had become. He said he loved him too much to make him live in the shadows. Then he ended the call. I've never seen my brother cry like that. Months later, when we started piecing things together, we learned the truth. It was all a setup. My father, Ava, and her family planned the whole thing. But what shattered me wasn't that, it was what we uncovered next. Ava wasn't just some random girl. She'd been my father's mistress for years. When I confronted Sean about it, he wasn't even surprised. He said he'd known for a while. He tried telling our mother, but every time he did, she called him a liar, even punished him for spreading nonsense. Eventually, he stopped trying. It made me sick. Not just the cheating, but how deeply everything in our family was built on manipulation and denial. My father had destroyed my brother's happiness, his relationship, his freedom, all to maintain some illusion of control and reputation. And my mother? She just pretended not to see any of it. After finding out the truth about my father and Ava, Sean decided he'd had enough. We gathered every piece of evidence we could, messages, photos, call logs, even testimony from a few of Ava's so-called friends. We filed for divorce. It was one of the ugliest legal battles I've ever witnessed. Ava's main defense was that she was pregnant, claiming the child was Sean's. But my brother stood firm. He told the court he never slept with her, and to everyone's shock, Ava herself confirmed it, in a fit of anger. She screamed that she wouldn't touch that man even if he begged, and demanded my father own up. The DNA results sealed everything. The baby wasn't Sean's. It was my father's. Yeah. My father had gotten his son's wife pregnant. After that, everything unraveled quickly. Neither my father nor Ava's family wanted custody of the baby. The court ruled that since Sean was the only stable guardian, and technically the child's half-brother, he would take care of the baby. It was, ironically, one of the fastest divorce cases in our country's history, just under 8 months. We later found out Ava had been participating in orgies and group parties, even while she was pregnant. I felt sick hearing it, but Sean didn't even flinch. He'd already been broken beyond words. After the divorce, I reached out to Milo. He'd been messaging me occasionally, asking about Sean, but I kept things vague. This time, I told him everything. He cried over the phone. A week later, Sean left the country for his consultant training, I think that's what it's called, and took the baby with him. When he landed, Milo was there waiting. They reunited after all those years apart. I can't describe how happy that made me. But that brings me to what happened yesterday, the reason I'm here asking if I'm the a-hole. During dinner, my father brought up another one of his ridiculous proposals. This time, the daughter of a business associate, and just like Ava, she gave me a bad feeling. Everyone in our social circle knows her reputation. I don't judge people by their past, but her hobby, as people put it, is sleeping with married men. She cheats for sport. So I said no. Politely, at first. That's when my father snapped. He accused me of being ungrateful, of following in Sean's footsteps, and then he said something that made my blood boil. He called Sean a faggot who ruined the family name. I saw red. He went on, calling Sean a disgrace, saying he destroyed our parents' marriage, that I was next. I couldn't hold back. I told him that if following Sean's footsteps meant being kind, loyal, and decent, then I'd rather be like him than a cheating hypocrite. That set off an explosion. He started yelling about how Sean's existence embarrassed him, how his own son tainted his image, how I was choosing outsiders over my real parents. I snapped. I reminded them of every time they'd failed us, every hospital visit they skipped, every birthday they missed, every moment Sean had to play the role of both mother and father because they were too busy with galas and mistresses. I told them that whatever family name they were defending had already been destroyed by them, not by Sean. When I finished, my father was pale. My mother was sobbing. I left. I went to Sean's apartment, the one he'd given me keys to before leaving, and stayed there overnight. This morning, one of the maids called. She said my father locked himself in his office and hasn't come out since. My mother's still crying. And here's the thing, I don't feel guilty. Not one bit. For the first time in my life, I said everything that needed to be said. So, am I really the a-hole for standing up to them?